Hey guys, it's Ohmwrecker, and I'm looking at the Prepare to Die edition of Dark Souls. At the moment, this version is exclusive to PC users, although the content that's been added for PC will be making its way over to consoles soon. Now, as a port, it's a little bit sloppy, which we'll get into more later. But as a game, it is delivering exactly what PC users wanted, which was that core Dark Souls experience. And it's something that's been asked for a lot since Demon Souls came out. If you haven't played any of the games before in the franchise, then initially you're going to think it looks like a standard RPG where you pick your class, you can look at your stats, you can modify the look of your character. But the truth is, it's very different from standard RPGs. Most other RPGs out there are focused on the dialogue trees and the story and building out your party and developing relationships with your party. But Dark Souls, on the other hand, is more about the action RPG experience. Yes, you are leveling up your character, you are buying items from different vendors at times, you are talking to some characters, but for the most part you're thrown into this very, very dangerous world, where death lies around every corner and every turn. Even at the start of the game, the developers go and essentially deliver a very swift virtual kick to the nuts by throwing you into your very first boss fight. This boss fight, I'd imagine a lot of new players probably think that they have a chance at. The reality is that you have no chance in the world. This creature is here to kick your ass swiftly and essentially put you into your place, to let you know that this is a game that isn't messing around. Like, you are going to die a lot. And that's the very reason that players love this game series so much. It's that it consistently challenges the player to get better, to learn the moves of the enemies, to learn the layout of the levels in the game, and also, of course, to master the patterns of the bosses as well. Speaking of which, you do get thrown back into the pit with that horribly ugly fat bastard that killed you during your first encounter. And this is where Dark Souls shows you a little bit about what it's like to finally kill some of these things that have proven to be so difficult. And that's really the theme for the rest of the game, is that you're constantly facing off against enemies and bosses that are typically much more powerful than you are. But if you can figure them out, if you can pick up on the animations that they do right before they're about to attack, those are the types of things that can really sway the favor your way, where you can finally kill the creatures. It's at this point, once you finally start to see what this game's about, that you get picked up by a giant ass crow and brought into what's really the start of the game. And that's when you get to your Firelink Shrine and the world unlocks, and that's really where you choose your own path. It's not quite like other games where it's a linear experience and you're told that you're going from point A to point B, or you're given a quest that you have to solve and that's really going to be your main focus. In this game, you really do choose your path, and if you think you're ready for a certain area, you can go for it. Typically, the only thing that's going to be stopping you are the enemies. And if you could find your way past these enemies, if you can learn to defeat them, then you can go anywhere you want in the game. Just keep in mind that there's a wide variety of enemies that are waiting for you. Some are just your run-of-the-mill average opponents to go against, but others, beyond swarming you in number, can have special attacks where, for example, they might jump on your head and devour it if you let them get too close. Or others might have the ability to dissolve through your armor if you allow them to get a certain attack off on you. Some will attack you with arrows while you're trying to fight a melee ally of theirs. Others can inflict you with a fatal curse just by keeping you within a cloud for too long. And then when you respawn, if you're cursed, you have half your hit points until you can find a way to get rid of it. That's how brutal Dark Souls is. And that's really only taking into account the lower tier enemies. There are higher tier enemies too that aren't quite bosses. They're somewhere in the middle. Some respawn, some don't. So sometimes you might encounter one that once you kill it, you'll never see it again. but the others will keep coming back every time you die or visit a fire. Much like everything else in this game, the developers never hold your hand and let you know exactly what to expect from any of these enemies, or if they're among the types that'll come back or not. You just have to figure it out. And again, this is something that fans seem to love about this franchise, is that it literally refuses to hold your hand. Aside from the number of treasures that you're going to find scattered about the world, the closest thing you're going to get to any help is that comes from any of the NPCs that you meet throughout the game. Most will only give you little nuggets of information that you can try to use to piece together some sort of story. Others might offer you services and goods. They might upgrade your armor and your weapons, for example, or apply special properties to them like lightning damage. And there are NPCs that will join you in battle when you go into boss fights, much like other players can, which is really the only interaction you can actually have with other owners of Dark Souls. Going back to those boss fights though, one word for them: epic. They are among the coolest boss fights I've ever seen in any RPG to date. And it's honestly tough to compare them to anything else just because there aren't many RPGs that have ever done anything like this, where the fights themselves are not only against extremely unique bosses, but the way that you fight them is also unique as well. Additionally, there's special little bonuses you can sometimes get where, for example, when you're fighting the gargoyle bosses, you could potentially get a weapon out of them if you attack a certain part of their body. And this goes not just for that boss, but for others as well. To even the odds, though, against the bosses in general, since they're so tough, you can bring in either NPC allies or you can summon a actual player character. Now, you can't talk with them. There's no way to use like voice comm in-game or anything. You just have to hope that they're going to be effective in helping you deal with that enemy. Otherwise, you can always just go solo, which doesn't mean that you're going to fail. It's just going to be a little bit more challenging when you try to take on some of these bosses by yourself. Which is actually something I did on the console versions. I played through the entire game without ever calling in allies because I made the mistake of thinking that the bosses would scale up, not knowing that the bosses, they actually stay the same, and having somebody there actually makes the fight a lot easier. So whatever you do, don't make the mistake I did of trying to play through the entire game solo, because having an ally, whether it's an NPC or a player character, is always helpful. There is one more thing though to Dark Souls I want to talk about before I wrap this up and talk about the port itself on PC. And that's invasions. That's when you actually get invaded while you're human. Invasions are essentially PvP combat between players or even the AI, which requires you to be human, which also takes a player action. So realistically, you could avoid being invaded through the whole game if you want to play as undead. The disadvantage to that though is that you have lower drop rates for potential items that can drop when you kill enemies. So it's really up to you how you want to play. Now, if you are into PvP though, then there are a number of ways to invade other player instances. It's up to you if you want to be the type that does try to invade other players and kill them and reap the benefits from doing so, or if you want to be the one that typically waits to see if other players invade you and then take them on that way. Just keep in mind that there are risks in doing either, and being a constant invader can come back to bite you. Alright, so now let's finally talk about the port while you guys watch footage of me dying over and over and over again. The port itself, as mentioned at the start of this video, is a bit sloppy. And there's a number of reasons for that. First off, the keyboard and mouse support sucks. It absolutely sucks. So much, in fact, that I actually had busted out my Xbox 360 controller for Windows easily within 10-15 minutes of trying to play with the mouse and keyboard. It was just horrible. A very, very bad experience. And it still hasn't been tweaked at this point. And it's not just the controls, but you may have seen in some of my previous clips that there was a mouse cursor kind of hovering in the center of the screen. Beyond the controls feeling horrible with the mouse and keyboard, you also had this issue where your mouse cursor would remain on the screen no matter what you did, so if you'd look around, the mouse cursor would be looking around with you too. It was just really unpolished, and honestly, I couldn't see much of a reason that it shipped that way in the first place, considering that this was a PC port with keyboard and mouse support. So the other issue is that the resolution was locked, people came to find out, at 1024 by 720. And From Software wasn't willing to make any sort of changes to that. Essentially, they wanted to lock down PC players to a really crappy resolution that PC players honestly have never used. First off, 1024 by 720 isn't standard, but also that it's not reflective of the high resolutions that graphics cards today can output to high resolution displays. There's some good news though. There's a modder that within days of launch literally made his own fix and shared it with the community. And he did it by creating a DirectX 9 wrapper that would essentially force Dark Souls into running at a higher resolution and also eliminating its 30 frame per second cap. So PC users now, through his mod, have been able to increase the resolution of Dark Souls, make it look better, and he's also added other enhancements as time's gone on. I'll go ahead though and link his mod in the description so you guys can check it out. If you do get this game, you need to make sure you run that thing. I mean, it's literally mandatory at this point. Otherwise, you're no better off than if you're on console, aside from maybe that extra content that comes from the Prepare to Die edition. Anyways, guys, that about wraps it up for this quick look at Dark Souls Prepare to Die for PC. I did want to make sure that I had enough time to check it out before I rush something up. I know you've probably seen some videos on other channels, but again, I did want to make sure that I had time to check it out and get far enough in the game where I could actually vouch for it being a proper port. As mentioned, there are quirks. It could have used more polish. It is a little bit sloppy, but it is still very much Dark Souls, and if you are going to buy Dark Souls and you haven't bought it before, I would recommend it on PC. Just make sure that you do have a gamepad, because that's really the only way to play it as far as I'm concerned on PC. Yes, that sucks. I mean, you would expect a PC game to be friendly to the keyboard and mouse, but right now it's just not polished. With the controller, it's a much, much better experience. And of course, be sure to use the community mod that I'm going to link in the description. Anyways, that's all, guys. Thanks for watching. Please be sure to like, favorite, comment, and subscribe. And let your friends know about my channel. I always appreciate when you guys do that. There's more videos coming up, so stay tuned. And I'll see you guys next time.